All right, again, for lesson 2, we're going to be looking at volume. This time we're going to take a look at a triangular prism, just how those work. Very similar to a rectangular prism, just one slight difference. That is what we'll be working on today. Okay, so your only vocabulary word is a triangular prism. The prism with a triangle on either side. If you remember the rectangular prism, it was full of rectangles, but the opposite sides were the same. So a triangular prism is going to be a 3D shape, but on the ends, it's going to be a triangle. So if you look here, you can see that you have the triangle on either side, and then you have that distance that connects both triangles, which is what makes it 3D. So this is what we'll be working with today. When we're finding the volume, we're finding how much space is taken up on the inside. How much could this hold? Okay, so we're going to look at the formula. And the formula is very similar to the rectangular prism, but there is one slight difference. Hopefully you're able to pick up on it. Your volume is going to be your base times the height. So let's look at that. You have the base times the height times the length divided by 2. So the question that comes up is, why are we dividing by 2? And it goes back to what the whole shape is. If you look very closely here, you have a triangle here. So if you think back to the area of a triangle, when you had a triangle, it was the base times the height, but you had to divide by 2. And the reasons for that, as we've been learning, a triangle, that's not a very good one. Let me try this again. A triangle is half of a rectangle. And that length and width is the same as the base and height. So because we have half of it, we have to divide it by 2. And so we still have half of that shape, and so we have to divide by 2 in this problem. So your formula is going to be base times height times the length of the shape, and we are going to divide by 2. Just like when we worked with the area of a triangle, if you have the base is an even number, you can divide it by 2 before you multiply, or the height, or in this case, even the length. So there are multiple ways to work this problem to get the final answer. Whichever way works for you, that is what you should be doing. One other thing to remember is, because we are working with triangles, that height makes that 90-degree angle. So that is what we're looking for when we do the base times height for the triangle. Okay, so look at this first example. Very important that you write out each number in the formula when working. So real quick, your formula is the volume equals the base times height times the length of the shape. We are going to divide by 2. So once again, we just wrote down on the previous page, you have to find that 90-degree angle for the triangle, and that is your base and height. So whatever 2 numbers connect there, that is what you're using. So your base and height is going to be 10 times 12. Very important. That's why it's all caps, I'm trying to stress this. A lot of kids struggle with the length of the shape. Very important that you understand the length is never, the length of the shape is never a side of the triangle. In fact, the length is never a part of the triangle. So if I look at my triangle, if I was to cut it out and put it right here, you should see that there's a 13, there's a 13 coming down the middle, you had 12, and then here on the bottom you had 10. None of these numbers can be the length of the triangle. Or excuse me, cannot be the length of the triangular prism. Because the length is showing you the distance from the front of the shape to the back, and so the 13s cannot be your answer. You have this line coming off of the triangle, that's right here. That is going to tell you the distance from the front to the back. And so the base is 10, the height is 12, the length is going to be 14. And because we're working with triangles, we have to split those in half. So this problem is 10 times 12 times 14 divided by 2. Now you can do this whatever way you want. You can multiply 10 times 12 times 14, divide by 2. You're going to get a big number. If you wanted, you could divide, 10 by 2 and get 5. 5 times 12 times 14. That makes the numbers a little bit smaller. If you wanted, you could also divide these two first. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So your problem would be 10 times 6 times 14. However, I want to split, personally, I'd rather split my biggest number. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So my new problem is going to become 10 times 12 times 7. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And so it gives me that. This is a lot easier to work with. You can do 12 times 10, that's 120. 120 times 7, if you want. 7 times 0 is 0, 7 times 2 is 14, 7 times 1 is 8. So you get 840 for your final answer. Just to work it another way, if you wanted, you could have done 12 times 7 first. 12 times 7 is 84. 84 times 10, that's a lot easier to work with. You still get 840. And so there are multiple ways to get your answer. The key is your formula tells you to choose 3 numbers. You have to choose correctly. You must find the base and height of the triangle. And then it's very important you choose the number that is not a part of the triangle. And in this case, it was 14. So my final answer is 840. Your measurements were in millimeters. So this is 840 millimeters cubed. Make sure that it is cubed. Okay, so just like last one, the directions are going to tell you find the volume of the shape. You have a triangular prism, and so we need to remember what the formula is. You have the volume, and it's going to be the base times height times the length of the shape. We need to divide it by 2. If you're feeling brave, I'd encourage you to pause the video and try this yourself just to see how you do. If you get this right, well, then you're one step closer to being competent with this. So I'd encourage that. Okay, so one thing to remember, it is very important that the length of the shape when you're writing out your numbers is not a side of the triangle. Okay, so I have 5 numbers in this problem, but according to your formula, you can only use 3 of them. I do know I have to divide by 2 somewhere in the problem. And so to start with, I need to first find my base and height of the triangle. And I am always looking for that 90-degree angle. That tells me what the base and height are. So if you look at it, it's going to connect the 2 lines. So this is my base and height. And so I'm going to start with 8 times 6. Do you remember the length? I'm going to highlight it just so that we see it again. The length of the shape is never a side of the triangle. If I look at my triangle here, the 5 is a part of it. That can't be it. We've already used the 6. We've already used the 8. And so I got 2 numbers left. Now if I look at this 5, that 5 is a part of the triangle as well, because opposite sides are the same, so that's 5. This side of the triangle is also 5. And this 12, it looks like it could be part of that triangle, but that 12 is actually going to be where the triangle here ends, and then you're going to have the length of the shape, and it's going to go all the way to this edge. So 12 is not connected to your triangle. It might be easier to look at this way. You had your 8 right here, you had 5, and that 12 was connecting to this side, to the triangles. So you're going to have 12 as the length of the shape, and then this will get you your answer. You can multiply 8 times 6 times 12 divided by 2. You could divide 8 divided by 2, and then you have 4 times 6 times 12, or you could do 6 divided by 2 and get 3, so you'd have 8 times 3 times 12. I prefer to get rid of that bigger number when possible, so I'm going to choose 12 and do 12 divided by 2. When I do that, I get the new problem of 8 times 6 times 6. That's a lot easier to work with. 8 times 6 is 48. And then I need to multiply it by that last 6. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 4 is 28. So your answer is 288 meters cubed. Okay, so here's your next shape. Same directions, find the volume of the triangular prism. Remember that the length of the shape is never a side of the triangle. So I'd encourage you to pause the video, try this one again. You have the volume is the base times height times the length, and we're going to divide by 2. So in this problem, you have 6 numbers to choose from, but you can only use 3 of them, and so it's important to know which ones to use. We do know we're dividing by 2. You have to remember that 90-degree angle. That 90-degree angle will tell you your first 2 numbers. So I have 6 as the base, I have 3 as the height. And now I need to find which number is not a part of the triangle. We just used the 6 and 3, so I'm going to cross those out. If I look at these two 12s, they're part of the triangle. They're on this side of the triangle. So that's this side and this side. So we are not going to use the 12s. That leaves us the 13s. Both 13s are the same. And the reasons for that, if I look at this rectangle, it's 13 on top, it's 13 on bottom. And if I look at this rectangle, opposite sides are the same. So those 13s represent the same line. It is the line that goes off of the triangle, and it goes and tells you how far back it goes. So you have your triangle up front, and you have that distance that comes off of it, that is 13. So that is going to be the height. So this problem is 6 times 3 times 13 divided by 2. On this one, I would simplify first. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but this will make it easier. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 times 13 gets you your final answer. 3 times 3 is 9. So this problem is just going to be 13 times 9. That's 117 meters cubed. That'll get you your answer for this one. Okay, so last problem you have, I'd encourage you to pause it and see how well you do. If you have any questions, please email me. If you want some one-on-one time to practice these problems, we can do that also. We will be having a Zoom class on this. If you have any questions, if you want to go over some of your work, there'll be a time that we can do that. Remember what the formula is, know what shape you're working with. You're finding the volume of the triangular prism. That is going to be the base times the height times the length, and we need to divide it by 2. So once again, there's your 90-degree angle. So you have, just kidding, you don't have the 4. Forgot to mention that. Okay, so looking at it, I have this line, and I have this line. So I see that I have the 3. I need to find what this bottom line is. It is not the 4. If you look right here, this shape is a rectangle. To remember your shapes, the opposite sides of a rectangle are the same. So if this side is 2, the following side, all the way over, has to be 2 as well. So this 2 is actually going to be the base of this shape. So you got 2 times 3 for the base and height. And we do have to divide it at 2 in some point. Okay, so I'm going to highlight it again so that you can just keep hearing it. The length of the shape is never a side of the triangle. I've already used the 2. I've already used the 3. Do you see the 5? It's this part of the triangle, so I'm going to cross it out. Now look at this side of the triangle. It's a 4, so I'm going to cross it out. That leaves me with 8. So this is my problem. You can do 2 times 3 times 8 divided by 2. If you wanted to divide the 8 and 2 and get 4, multiply 2 times 3 times 4. You could do that. I recommend that you simplify this, the 2's. Whenever you have a 2 on top and a 2 on bottom, just cross them out because that equals 1. So this problem is just 3 times 8. This is 24 inches cubed. That will be your final answer. So this is our last problem. If you have any questions, please message me. Make sure you find the base and the height of the triangle, and that the length is never a part of the triangle. It's the measurement coming off of it. So just keep that in mind. Write out your formula first with the numbers, and then you should be able to work this.